Up of speakers today. And as usual, we will be recording our meeting today. So just so folks are aware, we record and then share that recording out afterwards for anyone who wasn't able to join us live today to watch afterwards. So just a quick preview of our agenda. We'll walk through our OTC workforce, OTC Works workforce strategy today, as we usually do, just with those 3 action areas to kind of remind folks of the action areas that the county is involved in and how our work kind of gets bucketed into that. And then we've got, as usual, our 3 kind of speakers to align with each of those action areas. First up, and I haven't seen him hop on yet, but Erik Osberg from our team here at the county will be sharing about the Talent Tourism Pilot Program, which is a collaboration between the county and Otter Tail Lakes Country. So kind of perfectly positioned to where Erik does a lot of his work. So he will be sharing a little bit about that program. And then we have Amy Johnson, who is our Youth Workforce Navigation Program Manager, and she will be sharing some tips and best practices for employers who are interested in building out a high school internship program to kind of closely align with some of that youth skills training work and the work that has gone on in the past year, and it is kind of ramping back up here as school is getting started this year as well. And then our third guest speaker is Kathleen Gordon. She is from the Department of Labor and Industry at the state and will be sharing with us some information about the Minnesota Dual Training Pipeline Program and then the grant program that goes along with that as well. And then as usual, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A and discussion. So
what happened?
With that being said, I think we've got that muted there now. With that being said, we will go ahead and switch into the OTC workforce strategy. So just as a reminder, OTC obviously stands for Otter Tail County, but also opportunities, training, and connections. And each of those kind of align with our 3 action areas. So opportunities being that the county really plays a role in promoting the availability of jobs in the county, and then also those workforce resources connecting job seekers and employers to all of the different resources that are out there. The second one being training. So really that one is kind of focused on helping our employers promote their opportunities and then recruit and retain workers more effectively. So what can we be doing to share those best practices like Amy will be doing so that they're doing that process the most effective way they can. And then third being that connections, and this is really where the bulk of our time is spent, but creating those partnerships to improve occupational readiness, reduce some of those barriers to employment for folks who aren't fully employed in the workforce, and then aligning those skills for future workforce needs. And that's really where our kind of youth programming comes in. So good overview of that workforce strategy. Just looking here to see if Erik has hopped on yet. Otherwise, we will maybe just come back to Erik and we'll skip and go directly to Amy Johnson, who is our, like I said, our Youth Workforce Navigation Program Manager. And I'll turn it over to Amy to kind of dive into some best practices for internships.
Thank you, Sarah. As Sarah said, Amy Johnson. Thank you all for being here to listen to the convening today. I will be giving you a brief overview of how to build a high school internship program. When I talk to businesses, they often will say, yeah, we have one. It's for college students. But this is taking it a step back and building it actually for those high school students so that when you do get a call from the teacher asking if you could host a student, we want you to have the tools that you need to make that successful and meaningful on both sides. Next slide. So of course, data first. So according to Minnesota DEED, Gen Z, which is age 25 and younger, is an increasingly engaging population in the workforce. And by 2030, 30% of the workforce will be Gen Z. Also, students that have a CTE or career in tech ed experience in high school that includes work-based learning are more likely to stay and work in their home region. Next slide. So with this information, I wanted to get the students' perspective. So I did interview 34 high school students who were in internship experiences last year. And so why is getting the students' perspective so important in this work? So you, as a business, do you aim to have the perfect product for your customer? So in an internship program, who is the customer? The student. So the goal is to introduce students to your workforce in hopes that they will stay working with you beyond their internship or come back when they're ready. So looking at these results, by a show of hands who I can see on my computer, who is surprised by number one? People interaction. Because the feedback that I usually hear from businesses and people is students don't talk, they look at their phones, they don't want to talk to people. That's not what I heard from the students. So it just tells you that there are changes coming. This is the next generation of interaction. And so by people, I asked them, what do you mean specifically? Coworkers, mentors, supervisors, even customers. They like it when they can answer the phone and feel like they belong at the company, and just being at the table. You can see the other areas as well. Next slide. So on the flip side, what do they not like about their internship experience? So this really proved to me that this work is valid, that the county does need to help businesses put these plans into place because the student is wanting them. And to create that most successful and meaningful experience, we need to make sure that that happens. So without a plan, any one of us will get lost. We prefer to have direction, like to know what there is to do. Students specifically said, we want to know what to do when there's downtime. We don't like sitting around. They notice when an internship is not prepared for. So we are here to help you prepare. Next slide. So I think you all know this by now, a lot of familiar faces and names on this call today, but just a good reminder that building partnerships with schools, teachers, and school admin will create a talent pipeline for your business. If you have those relationships in place, you will be considered for student opportunities. It shows that you're invested and committed to engaging with students. Next slide. So here are ways to, some ways for you to engage your outreach, which we consider a pathway to an internship. So what is the goal here? To attract students that have an interest in your industry and want to explore careers at your business. So identify from this list how you are willing and able to engage with students to break the ice. Host a tour. You can engage many students at any time, and you could contact the schools and invite them to your place of business or hop on a community organized tour. After the tour, follow up with the teacher that came with the students that you worked with to get the students there. Follow up with the teacher in the ways that you are willing to engage with his classroom, including internships. And if you want to take it a step further, create a flyer for the teacher branded by your company for the teacher to print out and pass around the classroom. Some other creative ideas to reach students interested in your industry that I've heard throughout other meetings is host a webinar for your company and invite students, parents, and educators to teach them about your career opportunities and internship programs. Another one is hold an open house at your facility, inviting the same audience. Form partnerships with local youth organizations that are already engaged with students, like your Boys and Girls Club, the Scouts, YMCA, STEM programs. They're already doing the work and engaged with the students, so you would have a segue there. Another thing is training your supervisors and hiring managers about the Gen Z culture. Next slide. So a question I often get asked is, who do I contact at the school? How do I reach somebody? So here's a few ways hopefully you all are on the k12navigator.org, registered there for to show students and teachers that you are willing to host a student for career experience. That is where you can find contact information for schools. Otherwise, go to the school that you want to reach students, search the staff directory. A couple keywords could be work-based learning, CTE, which again is career and tech ed. Ag isn't just ag anymore. That's a good contact if your industry is trades or industrial. And then always school counselor, when in doubt, school counselor will get you where you need to go. Next slide. Another question that I get asked often is, how long do these internships last? My answer is, it depends. There's way too many variables to put a time limit on it. And the biggest variable is the student school availability, how many credits they need to graduate, where the school can let them out, if the school is set up to let them out, which I'll let you know most of our schools are. We work closely with Lake Country Service Co-op to remove that barrier. But every student has a different schedule. Every student is in different sports or not. So it really does depend on the student. So how long, let's say that you have a student that has an open schedule and they typically they'll be in a work-based learning environment, and it will be either a semester or a trimester, again, depending on how the school is set up. And so it's going to come down to that initial request from the teacher and you working with the teacher to determine what that timeline is. Sometimes they're available one time, 2 hours a week. Sometimes they're available 4 times a week, 2 hours a day. So it just depends, and it depends on what you're looking at. So that's very catered. But what we do say is that, let's say that it's a 6-week internship. You will sit down with them, talk to them about what they're wanting out of the experience. For the first 3 weeks, have them explore different areas in your business. Halfway through that internship, sit down with the student, the intern, to find out what their favorite areas were, and then allow them to spend the remaining 3 weeks in those areas. Next slide. So here's kind of a little, some steps for building the process to launch a program. So a coordinator this would be the first point of contact for intern inquiries. Somebody that can keep a consistent process and hold the company accountable for an organized program. Design your internship pathways. This is what you have done on the K-12 Navigator if you've registered, so you can copy those. You're indicating within the Minnesota Career Wheel what opportunities you can offer the student. Assign mentors in each department. So this is who the student will shadow. You want positive examples with good working habits. Someone that will teach accountability and be able to follow through with downtime tasks. So what will the students do in these departments? Here's where you will want to involve your team leads and supervisors to help to determine what would benefit the student and the company. Remember, this isn't just for them, it's for you too. So you can design this so it's meaningful on both sides. One-on-ones are important to check in with the student. The survey feedback indicated the same. Check in on the process, check in on the assigned mentor, and intern's progress and continued interest. Another idea, because there isn't really a measurable ROI on this program when you implement it, a final presentation to your leaders. This is something, if any of you have went to Catherine Anderson, Fergus Falls internship programs, where her interns will present their experience to the group and their supervisors, you could do that same format in your business setting to the leaders. So the student would talk about what did they do, what did they learn, what was defined in their career path. This does build communication skills, confidence, and professionalism for the student. We had a student do this for one of our steering committee meetings, and they did not complain. It sounds like something we wouldn't want to put on a student, but I think they can handle it. And you could get a little emotional ROI and buy-in from that experience. So then once your process is in place, use this year after year. It's your process, unique to your business. Make enhancements to it as you need. And remember, your interns are with a lot of other students all the time. They are your new marketing tool. They will market your program. Next slide. So these are the schools that are the Otter Tail County participating schools. So in our programs, our youth programs, we have relationships with all of these schools. So it's easy for businesses to think about the schools that are right down the road. But it's very likely that you are within 30 miles of many of these schools. So just a reminder to be open to creating those relationships with more schools. Next slide. The Youth Skills Training Program. This is a supplement to Otter Tail County's initial program for youth. This is an additive. It was passed in legislation in 2017 by the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to receive safe, meaningful, and paid work experiences in positions that might not traditionally allow 16 and 17-year-old learners. In our case, youth skills training applies to advanced manufacturing, automotive, healthcare, and agriculture. Next slide. So remember, this is just for those 16 and 17-year-olds to remove the barrier to get them out into these kind of occupations that are on your screen here. And lastly, next slide, I think. Yeah. So bittersweet as it is, this is the last school year of Otter Tail County's youth workforce grant funded programs. So take advantage of the support that Otter Tail County is providing you to put the tools in place so that you have what you need to build your future workforce. So feel free to email me at the email on the screen or give me a call. And I'm already scheduled to go out to a few businesses and help them put a high school internship program in place. And I've already actually put one in place for a couple of businesses. So really the goal is to make sure that you have those in place so you can carry the work forward and build your future workforce. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, great advice. And as Amy said, you know, this guide, these tips she has used already in development of a couple of programs. And we also kind of took some of the feedback with some of the successes in the first year of our program with students in internships, specifically with the YST, the Youth Skills Training grant funding, and then also in addition to some of our schools who had already had that in place. We took some of those learnings, as Amy kind of shared with the students that she had talked to in those early slides, and used that to build this guide too. So there is a one-page handout front and back that I will share as a follow-up to our meeting today too, that kind of encompasses a lot of what Amy talked about today. But like she said, you know, Amy is contracted with the county to do this work for the next school year, for this first the 2023-2024 school year. So if your business is wanting to engage with students, now is the time, and especially with her expertise and resources, and the ability for her to go out and help your business build whatever your program needs to look like. I would strongly encourage you to take advantage of that. So thanks, Amy. We are going to go, we'll save questions for the end if we do have time left over, but we're going to go backwards to, I see Erik is on now. So I'm going to click back through Amy's slides here and get back to Erik. But like I mentioned on the front end, Erik is going to kind of give us a snapshot and an introduction to the Talent Tourism Pilot Program, which, like I mentioned, is a collaboration between the county and Otter Tail Lakes Country Association, and really leveraging a relationship with the college students in the Twin Cities to kind of introduce them to Otter Tail County and a rural lifestyle and the opportunities that exist for careers here. So I won't steal any more of Erik's thunder, but I'll turn it over to you, Erik.
I have no thunder, sorry. And I apologize. I wasn't here earlier. Sorry about that. I don't have a good excuse, so I won't bore you with a bad one. Um, so talent tourism, and I don't have a slideshow. So talent tourism came to us by a stroke of luck, if you will. Um, Corey Heppola, who has hopefully by now everybody's familiar with Corey Heppola. He was part of our Emmy nominated Rural by Choice video series. It's now forever referred to as Emmy nominated, maybe Emmy winning. We'll find out. But Corey Heppola had ran into a graduate student at the University of Minnesota Carlson School of Business. And this graduate student is from a small town, from a rural place. He's from Montevideo. And so he was looking at, as part of his graduate studies, as part of his program, he was looking at wealth, what he called wealth retention in rural places. And one of the things he found was that many employers have to outsource certain positions, whether it be accounting or human resources or whatever. So by outsourcing these jobs, they were losing wealth. So being from a small community, he felt like if there was a way to introduce rural living to college students, that would be the first step in a long sales process of getting them to choose a rural lifestyle. So he developed the phrase talent tourism. Talent is the college students, and then the tourism is having them visit a community and learn more about rural lifestyle to see if it matches their perceptions. And so since March, Josh and I and Corey in the beginning have been working to develop this pilot program, and we're halfway done with the first one. And so earlier, a few weeks ago, we took 8 businesses from Otter Tail County down to the Twin Cities. We met at a place called the Urban Growler, and these employers got a chance to network with 20 plus college students. Most of them were graduate students or grad school students, but there was a few undergrad students as well. They also got to network with what are called career centers from a few different colleges. And it was really just about establishing relationships with the students and then with the schools. During this process, what I discovered was creating a connection between employers and campuses, like the career centers, might be more important, it's hypothetical, might be more important than the relationship with the students, because the students are going to come and go, right? They're going to come in their freshman year, they're going to be in a program, then they're going to leave. But if there's a way for employers to become top of mind to these advisors who are recommending career paths, there's an opportunity that might not be fully taken advantage of yet. I was introduced to a thing called Handshake. So apparently there's an internet website program called Handshake, and this is an opportunity for employers to digitally connect with those career centers. So we had 20 students. Josh, who is really the brains behind the program, he put together a great program, and those students got to meet the employers. We had a good time. So then phase 2 of this pilot program is next weekend. 15 of those students are coming up via charter bus to Otter Tail County. We are going to pay for their and when I say we, I mean Otter Tail Lakes Country Association and the Otter Tail County CDA. We're going to pay for them to stay in a resort. We're going to take them out to eat. We're going to take them on a pontoon ride and have a cup of coffee in the morning. There's other things. We're going to take them to Disgruntled Brewing. So really treating this like a recruiting trip, more than a workshop, if you will. They're gonna, when I'm selling rural living, I'm selling a lifestyle, not necessarily a career. And the data suggests that that's the way to do it, because when people make relocation decisions, they base it off of lifestyle first, and down the ladder is the job. And so this phase 2 of the talent tourism project program, excuse me, will be what we're calling small town safaris. We're going to take these students, we're going to bring them up here, they're going to go on safari, you know, and when you go on a safari, you don't really know what you're going to find, you don't know what you're going to see. Maybe you'll see a zebra, maybe you'll see an elephant, maybe you'll see a lion or not. But so we're going to take them on these small town safaris, and so then we're really trying to put the perception and reality in check, right? So that's what the talent tourism pilot program is all about. I anticipate this being an annual affair. I anticipate us learning from our mistakes, what we did right, what we did wrong, what we didn't do, what we should have done, what we shouldn't do. And so in 2024, I would anticipate that this program, I don't know if it'll be expanded upon, but it'll at least be repeated. And so if you're a business and you want to be part of this, the way to get into this is through Otter Tail Lakes Country Association. That's a member driven organization. And so yeah, excited about the program, learned a lot so far, and hopefully we can tweak it and make it even bigger, faster, and stronger for the future. The last thing I would say about it is Otter Tail Lakes Country Association, they're the Find Your Inner Otter people. We have partnered with sorry, my phone is ringing. We have partnered with the University of Minnesota Athletics Department. So it's, when I say it's coincidence, we have a lot of things happening at the University of Minnesota campus from a branding standpoint or a messaging standpoint. And this talent tourism just, again, coincidentally came at the right time in the right place. So it's hopefully the goal is, whether you're a student, whether you're a student at the U, a fan of the Gophers, or an alumni of the U, that you will know about Otter Tail County, and hopefully you'll grow to love it as much as we do. So does that answer the question, Sarah, or
Yeah.
are you looking for more?
Can I ask a follow-up question, Erik?
You can ask as many as you want.
So just for folks who aren't quite as aware of Otter Tail Lakes Country's partnership with the Gopher Athletics, can you kind of talk about, I know we've had this conversation separately, can you kind of talk about, like, how did this idea come to be? You said it's more like a recruiting visit. So we've kind of taken our athletics mindset and now brought it over to this talent tourism project. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I can. So I don't know where I saw it. I think it was Twitter. I saw it. I don't know if anybody follows athletics, but when they sign a recruit, like there's 3-star athletes, 4-star athletes, 5-star athletes, somebody in the graphics department creates a graphic with their face and their stats or whatever. And the kid that I saw was wearing a Bass Pro Shops hat. Now, I know that Bass Pro Shops hats are kind of a style statement, like Carhartt jackets are, right? But the light bulb that went off is the University of Minnesota is doing an elite job of recruiting hardworking, dedicated student athletes, and only a couple of them are going to go pro. So there's literally hundred kids at the U who are good students first. Sorry, my phone's ringing again. I should silence it. They're good students first. They're hard workers, and they're going to need a job. And some of them might like to fish. Some of them might like to hunt. Some of them might like to golf. You know what I mean? So that Bass Pro Shops hat is what triggered it. And then I got in contact with the U, and I said, here's what we're trying to do. We want a marketing campaign, but I need it to be more than a billboard or a radio ad. I want these college kids to experience what life could be like in Otter Tail County. And I'm going to introduce a new concept here. Sorry if I'm running long, but there's a thing called NIL, name, image, and likeness. college athletes used to not be able to make money off of they couldn't make money at all, and certainly not off of their name, image, or likeness. But with NIL, we can do that. We can pay a student athlete to come up to Otter Tail County, and he can say, I love Otter Tail County. It's my favorite county, right? Like we can do that now. And so we've, in addition to the talent tourism, getting these true students up here, we've also had student athletes come up. We've had 2 volleyball players come up, one of who texted me the Wednesday after. So 2 volleyball players came up. Sarah was there with me. We took them out. We helped them find their inner otter. On Wednesday, she texted me and said, I had such a good time. Are there any internships up there that I could be a part of before I graduate? And I was like, wow, that worked way better than I thought it would. We've also had the starting quarterback for the Gophers, Ethan Kaliakmanis, and his whole family came up, went fishing. They loved it. We've had Daniel Jackson and Darius Taylor. Daniel Jackson was the hero week 1 for the Gophers. Darius Taylor was the rookie of the week in the Big Ten. We brought them up, took them golfing, took them fishing. And I've been able to now text with these guys after their games. So after Daniel Jackson had a big game, I texted him. I said, hey, great game. Don't know if you remember me, but I took you fishing. And he texted back and said, thanks, man, appreciate it. So again, it's that coach recruiting mentality in athletics is, if we got to get in a bus and we got to drive down to Texas and shake somebody's hand to get that 4-star recruit, that's what we're going to do. So sorry if that was a really long answer to your question, but
No, perfect answer. So yeah, if we need to drive down to the U of M campus and shake hands with some students that want to come and live in a rural area, that's what we're going to do. So yeah, thanks, Erik. And kind of as a wraparound of all of this, one of the things that we've talked about with those employers that came down in August to the Twin Cities is this is a long game. You know, when college sports teams are recruiting, they're recruiting for 4 years of time. So it is a long game. It's in an ROI. Amy mentioned ROI too. The ROI isn't showing up right away, but it is relationship building. And so I think that unique approach to recruiting really is the core of this program. But the relationships make it feel a little bit more authentic, and I think that's what will attract some of those students. So thanks for the overview, Erik. With that, we're gonna go back to or wrap things up here with Kathleen Gordon and the pipeline program. So I'm gonna share my screen again here. But I just wanted to say, so in an early conversation that I had with Kathleen, I kind of said, you know, pipeline is both an opportunity, as in it's a grant, right? There's a grant that goes with it, and also training. And so I felt like this was a great combination of opportunities and training to kind of wrap things together with connections. And so that's why I asked Kathleen to kind of speak here to the connections piece of our action strategy. But I will turn it over to Kathleen. Like I said, she is with the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry, same organization as the Youth Skills Training Grant, so work pretty closely together. But I will turn it over to her, and she can kind of give us an overview of the pipeline program and some new stuff happening with that program.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And thanks for the invite. We can get started. We can go to the next slide. So I just kind of wanted to give a brief description of the Department of Labor and Industry, since people, I think, really think of it more as a compliance or regulatory agency, which it definitely is with OSHA and child labor laws and workman's comp. But we also have an arm of our agency that is workforce related, and it is kind of the earn and learn model. So it started with registered apprenticeship over 100 years ago. And more recently, in 2014, the legislature added the pipeline. And then 2015, they added the dual training grant. And our other workforce program, like Sarah said, is youth skills training. And that is obviously for the younger high school 16 and 17-year-olds. So those are our workforce programs at the Department of Labor and Industry. And we can go to the next slide. And so you might be wondering, what is dual training pipeline? So we consider ourselves really a support to employers to create their own employment-based dual training programs. We work exclusively in specific industries as mandated by the legislature. So we're in manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, and IT. And now this past legislative session, they have added childcare, um, legal cannabis, and transportation. So those are our newer ones that we're starting to work on. We can go to the next slide. And so the pipeline is a dual training model, which means structured on-the-job training, and all employers pretty much are already doing some form of on-the-job training. But what makes it a dual training program is it combines on-the-job training with a related instruction experience. So someone who is going to school for to upskill in a specific job, um, they're in school while they're also working. So we have heard from the employers who are doing this model that it really leads to an engaged employee and higher retention rates. And the next slide. And so what are the benefits of this type of training model? It's pretty obvious for employers, they're able to build their own workforce. So they are creating their own skilled worker pipeline. And the workers are working, or the employees are working while they are in school, so they're still producing, and it reduces employee turnover. For the workers, again, pretty obvious, they are able to earn a paycheck while they are in school. They're learning in-demand skills. They're earning either a certification, a degree, or an industry recognized credential. And they're, kind of hopefully earning higher wages as they are progressing. And the next slide. So on these slides are what specific occupations we have identified in these specific industries. So the ones you're looking at now are in the advanced manufacturing industry. And the next slide will be the agriculture occupations. And the next one are all of our healthcare service occupations. This has really exploded since the pandemic, since so many of healthcare employees have, early retirement and have just moved into other careers. So this has opened up a lot of different occupations within healthcare. And our last one at this point is information technology. And we have reworked these occupations in recent years. So we're hoping that with these occupations, it would cover basically any occupation within the IT industry. And just so everyone knows, it's important to know that any employer could apply, could do a dual training program or apply for the grant for IT, because we know that every single employer has IT needs. And the next slide. So for each one of those occupations that we had noted there, we have developed a competency pyramid. And I know this is super small on the screen, but this is all also on our website. But just so you know, the top tier of this pyramid, the occupation-specific competencies, are the ones that are most likely learned through on-the-job training. The next two tiers, industry sector and industry-wide, are most likely the skills that someone would learn through their education experience. And then the bottom three tiers are either skills that someone is already coming to you with, or they will be honed through their on-the-job training and their education. We can go to the next slide. And so we are always looking to add new occupations. We're always asking employers if they have, in-demand jobs that you cannot find workers for. And if they are not on our list yet, we always look to make sure at least 2 employers have expressed a need. We always are looking for a pathway to a family sustaining wage. This is kind of based on deed data for $19.46 per hour, and that's based on a family with one full-time employee, one part-time employed adult, and then one child. And it must be in demand, per our data again, must offer some type of a career pathway, which most occupations do. We have run across a few that don't lend themselves so much to a dual training model, but almost all do. So that's what we'd be looking for to add new occupations. And the next slide. And we do have a related instruction inventory on our website. So an employer would be sending someone to school to upskill into one of those occupations. And so on our website, you can check out different education providers that have programs for those occupations. And I will say that probably 80% of our dual trainees are in either a community and technical college, but then it doesn't have to be. We certainly have many employees who are, in 4-year bachelor's programs, master's programs, as well as some online programs. And we can go to the next slide. And so I just put together kind of a quick getting started if you are interested in starting a dual training program within your own organization. So you would want to determine what job it is that you're looking to address through dual training. Contact myself or one of our team to kind of talk you through it. Determine what that person in that job needs to know to be successful at your company. The next slide. Then you would want to pull up the pyramid for that occupation and kind of lay out your training program so that it works out with the on-the-job training, with the schooling. This is really used as a guide to create your program. And you also, and I'll talk a little bit more about the grant that is attached to this program in a minute. And if you are applying for the grant, you definitely want to have this handy when you're filling out your grant application and make sure that it's kind of aligns with it. And we can go to the next slide. And so then you're going to look for different education providers to see which one you might, or more, you might want to use for your program. Review their curriculum and make sure that it aligns again with what you're looking for your employees to know. Consider your best approaches for your on-the-job training. And we always like to mention that it is super important. I mean, we have found from doing this for many years that the on-the-job training lead person is very important. Maybe it's not the person who has been there forever, but maybe it's someone who's been there a long enough time to have mastered the skills, but who is interested in building a relationship with these new employees. And the next slide. And then finally, you'll want to recruit either a new employee or one of your current workers who's interested in going back to school and upskilling into another job. And you'll want to see where you can gain funding for this, whether it's through your company's own assets or through the state or a local community to help pay for this. And we can go to the next slide. That brings us to the dual training grant. So like I said, the dual training grant was put on by the legislature in 2015. We worked together with the Office of Higher Ed because they administer the dual training grant. Employers, it's an annual grant. It will open in March. And employers can apply for up to $6,000 per employee student, we call them, to pay for, or to pay up to $6,000 toward their education. So tuition, required fees or books can be paid for. And each employer can apply for up to $150,000 per year. And it is a reimbursement model. So the employer would pay for the tuition and then submit the receipts to the state, and then they would get a check back. If the employer does exceed $25 million in annual gross revenue, then there is a 25% match required. And employers can apply as long as the employee will be trained in one of our eligible occupations. The employees can't already have earned that degree or credential, and the permanent work location needs to be in Minnesota. The employee could live in North Dakota. The school could be in Wisconsin, but the actual job needs to be located in Minnesota because we're looking to upskill our state workforce. And I think that is what I have got. So this is our team at the Department of Labor and Industry, and we are very willing and able to chat with anyone about anyone who's interested in maybe starting a program. And I'm happy to, set up any type of calls or anything to see if it might work for you. I'll send
Great.
it back
Thanks,
to Sarah.
Kathleen.
Yeah, sure. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
So yeah, great. One of the reasons that we also asked Kathleen to be on is she mentioned March being the timeline for when grants open. And so this program is, it will take some planning. It will take some, buy-in from your employer, but just to plant that seed now with our employers, to get them thinking about it and obviously connect them to the great resources that DLI has and that Kathleen kind of has in her toolbox. To kind of start that process of thinking it through. So really great information. And Kathleen, maybe I'll just ask a quick question of you.
Sure.
So for folks who are interested in the program, but maybe not, or does the grant and the program, do they always have to go together or are they separate from each other? Can you do pipeline program without the grant? How does that work?
Sure. Yeah, we are very happy to talk to anyone about creating a dual training program, whether or not they apply for the grant. So we're here to be your resource and hopefully, help you. We also set up meetings between employers. If if you're interested in talking to another employer, maybe who has already done a successful dual training program, we're happy to set you up with another employer. Also, if you say you don't know anyone at the college that you're looking to send your employees to, we're happy to set up meetings. We have contacts at all the colleges too. So, yeah, in any way we can help. We have really realized that this is a good model for upskilling the workforce. So
Yeah.
we're happy to help.
Yeah, great. And I know there are some employers on the call today who have leveraged the pipeline program. And so I don't know if anyone is on that would want to unmute and kind of talk about their experience with the program or add to the chat kind of their experiences working with DLI on the pipeline program. But it is a great program to, like Kathleen said, upskill those workers. So with that, I am going to open it up to questions for any of our speakers, whether that be Kathleen or Amy or Erik, about any of the programs that you heard about today. So feel free to drop a question in the chat or unmute yourself, and our speakers are happy to take any questions. Or if you want to, like I said, unmute and kind of share your experience. We have employers on that have been a part of all three of these programs that we kind of talked about today. So if anyone has experience they would want to share with talent tourism or internships or pipeline, we're open to hearing some of that feedback as well. Kathleen, maybe one other question for you. Some of our employers, because Amy mentioned the Youth Skills Training Grant and that program, we've talked about, or we've heard kind of that YST is a great feeder for the pipeline program. Can you talk a little bit more about how that works?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll give you an example. For example, we work with an employer who they work with their local high school district and upskill the high school students into a certified nursing assistant role, and they work part-time during high school at this long-term care facility. Well, then once the kids graduate from high school, they are offered, if they want to stay on working for this long-term care facility at a part-time basis, that they will help them, upskill them into a nursing role if they, or obviously a number of different occupations that would work for them. And it has really, they have been very successful in that. Now I think they have 6 currently who went from the high school youth skills training program into staying in their, community, going to nursing school, and then they're at a community college. So virtually their entire tuition is being paid for. And meanwhile, they're working as CNAs, but they also have mentorship opportunities through their workplace that has, set them up with a registered nurse. So they're able to really gain that real world experience. And also I should mention that the grant will also pay for prerequisites. Say someone's, just getting out of high school and they need, certain prerequisites to get into a nursing program or to get into whatever it is they're looking to do. That the grant will also pay for that, and it will pay for up to $24,000 per employee. So as long as the employer continues to apply year after year, if they're, say getting a bachelor's degree, it would pay for that for 4 years. So it's been just great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it really goes to show that it is building that pipeline, right? That you start
Right.
with those students and kind of generate that pipeline into your workforce. So great example. All right. Any other questions for any of our speakers? Otherwise, we will wrap up today's convening, and thanks again for everyone who joined. I will, like I mentioned, have a couple of follow-up items. We'll send out the recording and the slides, as well as the employer guide for internships, and any other information that we can share out here after our convening today. But appreciate everyone joining as always, and we look forward to our next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.